Good morning and welcome back. I hope you guys had a great spring break. Now, from before spring break, what we've been looking at was calculating for speed, and we've been looking at graphs and how to interpret the motion. We've been talking about how to write equations that would represent the graphs and so on. Now, we're really going to dive into the actual laws themselves. So we have Newton's laws of motion, and there are three. Today we're going to do a quick review on Newton's first law because we've actually already done that based on the articles that you read. However, we're going to review that, but we're really going to concentrate on the second law today. Here we go. So Newton's first law stated that an object at rest remains at rest, or if in motion remains in motion at a constant velocity unless acted on by a net external force. Basically, this is the law of inertia. And I always called it the lazy law. Things don't like to change. So if it's at rest, it's going to stay at rest. One example of this would be, well, have you ever lost your phone before and couldn't find it? And then asked your parents if they've seen your phone, and their response to you was, I don't know, wherever you left it? That's the Newton's first law. The phone isn't going to just, what our parents like to say, grow legs and walk away. If they're at rest, they're going to stay at rest. So if your phone was left on the kitchen counter, it's not going to move unless someone has applied a force to it. That's what it means by the external, a net external force. If there's no force applied to it, it will stay there. It is at rest. It will remain at rest. Another example would be like when you can't find your second shoe. You find one, you thought you left your shoes at one place, and it's not there anymore. The only thing that can explain if they're not there anymore is that someone moved it. According to Newton's first law, it should be where you left it, but if they're not, someone may have picked it up and moved it somewhere else. So in my house, for instance, I'm asked where shoes are all the time because they're not put back. I have applied an external force and put them in the shoe closet where they belong. Now, if you left your two shoes in one spot and only one of them's gone, one of those shoes acted as the first law in the fact that it was at rest and it stayed at rest. The other shoe, maybe your dog applied an external force and made it move. Therefore, it's gone. It's not where you left it. All right, the other part of the law has to do with an object in motion stays in motion unless acted on by an external force. One example of that would be like your car. So when you're inside the car, you have a windshield that's going to protect you from the wind. So you may not actually realize you're moving, but you actually are. So if the car's going 50 miles per hour, so are you. Now if a deer pops out and you slam on the brakes and the car stops, since you are an object in motion, you're going to continue to want to move forward. That's why we have seatbelts. That seatbelt is going to act as that external net force to stop you. So you are the object in motion that wants to stay in motion. Now, according to this law also, an object in motion should stay at motion unless acted by an external force. So technically, if I took a tennis ball launcher and I shot the ball, it should just fly straight with the same speed forever. Realistically, that is the law, but it's not what you see every day. And it's for more than one reason. I'll give you one hint. Based on that little dog, when you're driving, what's hitting his face? There's air particles everywhere. Okay? So when the ball's launched, it is actually hitting gas particles, which is going to apply a net force back at it, which is going to slow it down. Okay, so that's one of the external forces. Also, when you shoot a ball up in the air, okay, if it were to shoot up, things always tend to come down. And what is the force that always brings things down? That'd be the force of gravity. So this law is still true. You may not see like it may not act like it's true all the time, but that's because there's forces at work that you don't always see. There's a force pushing down on it, gravity, and there's a force pushing back on it, which is those gas particles that you can't see. So those are actually the external net forces. Now, if we were actually in space, it really would fly forever because in space is a vacuum, which means there are no gas particles. So there would be nothing hitting it, and there's really no gravity pulling on it unless you're close enough to a planet that has its own gravitational pull. All right, time for the actual new material now. So Newton's second law states that acceleration of a particle is dependent on the forces acting upon the particle and the particle's mass. For a given particle, if the net force is increased, the acceleration is increased. For a given net force, the more mass a particle has, the less acceleration it has. I get it, but do you? To simplify it, Newton's second law is basically what it's just saying is that the acceleration of an object, so how quickly it moves and speeds up, is directly connected to the amount of force that is applied to it as well as the mass of the object. So, for instance, the picture below, you have two objects that are being pushed. The picture in A, the one on the left, has a basketball, and so you have a person who is throwing a basketball or pushing it. And then the one on the right, you have another object, a car. A person's pushing the car. Now, if you look at the red arrows in both of these pictures, you're going to notice they're the exact same size. So what they're trying to tell you is that this person is pushing the basketball at the same force that the person's pushing the car. All right? So imagine you pushing your arms out and just keep practicing doing that. Now, imagine you doing that and hitting a basketball and then doing that and hitting a car. Now, when you do that, if you're using the exact same force, one of those two items is going to accelerate quicker than the other. Think about it. If I were to push a car versus push a basketball, which one's going to fly away quicker? It's going to be the basketball. And if I were to ask you why, think about it. It's probably because it has a smaller mass. So what they're saying in this law is that the acceleration, of an object, so like the basketball, is directly connected to how hard you're hitting it or how hard you're pushing it, as well as how the mass of the object. So in this scenario, because the car has a higher mass, if you want to make it accelerate as quick as that basketball, you're going to have to hit it a lot harder. So here's another example. You've got, once again, the two of those F arrows, right here and right here. All right, those, they're the same length, so this golfer is going to be hitting the truck at the same force that he is hitting the golf ball. Okay, so if you look at the equation, you notice how the two F's are the same size? It's because we're going to go ahead and say that they're hitting with an equal force. Now, in my left scenario, you have a golf ball compared to a truck. Which one has a smaller mass? The golf ball. So if you look at the M on this equation, see how tiny it is? It's because the mass of the golf ball is tiny. Whereas the M over here, it's huge because the mass of the truck is huge. All right? If you had a golf swing and you smacked a golf ball and use that same force to smack a truck, which one's going to fly away at a quicker rate? That's going to be the golf ball. And that's why this A here is huge. It's because it's going to have a huge acceleration. Whereas if you were to do it to the truck, it's itty-bitty tiny. In other words, Newton's second law can actually be represented by this equation, where force equals mass times acceleration. Anytime you manipulate one of these, it's going to affect the other. For instance, we're going to do a little example. So we're going to say that you have an object that has a mass of 2 kilograms. Now, mass always has a measurement unit in kilograms. It has to be kilograms. Okay? And this object, we're going to make it accelerate at a rate of 5 meters per second squared. Acceleration is always measured in meters per second squared. So what force would have to be used to hit this object of 2 kilograms to make it fly at an acceleration of 5 meters per second squared? Well, you have a math problem right here. What's 2 times 5? Okay, the force required to make this object fly at 5 meters per second squared is 10. But 10 what? Technically, it's kilograms times meters per second squared. Our real answer is 10 kilograms meters per second squared. But do you really want to say 10 kilograms meters per second squared? Kilograms meters per second squared. No. So what we're really going to say, what they've done is they've actually changed this unit. So 1 kilogram meters per second squared is the same thing as a newton. So instead of saying kilograms meters per second squared, we're just going to get rid of it and say newtons. So force is always going to have a unit for newtons. Mass is always going to have a unit of kilograms, and acceleration will always be meters per second squared. Now, back to what I was saying before when I said that when you manipulate one, it's going to change the answers, right? So this is an item that has a mass of 2 kilograms. What if we want to manipulate that and have it have more mass? All right, well, let's pretend it has a mass of 5 kilograms. Okay? But we're not the Hulk, and we're still only going to hit it with a force of 10 newtons. If we still hit it with the same force, but we hit something heavier, you should know it probably will go small. We'll have a slower acceleration, but the question, what will the acceleration be? So 5 times something equals 10. That would be 2. So if I make the red one bigger, notice how this answer got bigger. What happened to my blue one? It went smaller. Okay? I bet you if I made it even larger, the same thing's going to happen. So let's pretend we have an item with a mass of 10 kilograms. And we're still going to only hit it with a force of 10 newtons. How fast will it go then? How fast is it going to accelerate if you hit this item that's 10 kilograms with a force of 10 newtons? 10 times what equals 10? 1 meters per second squared. So the relationship is that as you increase your mass, your acceleration is going to go lower. And the only way you can make two things accelerate at the exact same speed is you're going to have to either change its mass or change the force. Let me go back up here really quick. For instance, we had our first example there. We said that, let's see, 2 kilograms with the acceleration of 5 meters per second squared with 10 newtons. All right. Well, let's pretend we still have that item and it's 5 kilograms, but we want it to go the exact same speed as the first one. What's going to have to change? What's 5 times 5? 25 newtons. If you want to make both of these objects accelerate at the same speed, you're going to have to change how hard you hit them, and that makes sense. It's kind of like this one right here is the golf ball, and this one right here is the car. If you're going to make the car accelerate the same speed as the golf ball, you're going to have to hit it really, really hard. All right? All right, well, your homework tonight, there's 10 questions. Most of them are just answering very simple questions from this video. And you're going to have 3 math problems that look similar to this, and then 2 manipulating ones where you have to put them in order from which one's going to have the greatest acceleration from lowest to greatest. So if you're given this problem here, Stephanie pushes a car with a force of 15 newtons. What you're going to find all these math problems is it's going to give you 2 of the answers to plug in. You just have to figure out where they go. This is very similar to our solving for speed. So Stephanie pushes a car with a force of 15 newtons. So if it says force of 15 newtons, you should know that it goes under the force spot. So it's going to be 15 here. So 15 newtons equals. The car accelerates at 3 meters per second squared. So that's going to be an acceleration. So it goes here, 3 meters per second squared. What is the mass of the car? We need to solve for m. So 15 equals m times 3. Solve for 3. You're going to do what you've always done before. To get the m variable by itself, you're going to have to divide both sides by meters per second squared. Divide meters per second squared. 15, this cancels out. So m's on the right. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And, well, if a newton was kilograms meters per second squared, and you're dividing by meters per second squared, the meters per second squared cancels out, and what you'll be left with is kilograms. I know that's confusing for some. For me, I just get it. So what I'm just going to have to ask you to do is you're going to have to remember that force is always in newtons, mass is always in kilograms, and acceleration is always meters per second squared. So if you're solving for mass, expect the answer to unit to be kilogram. If you're solving for acceleration, it should be meters per second squared, and force is in newtons. I will have a Zoom available today at 11 o'clock if you need me. Don't forget that the office hours are from 9 to 3, okay? Good luck. I will leave you comments on how you do, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.